Responsibility. One thing we as Christians and as Seventh-day Adventists don't like to talk about or think about is our responsibility toward the world. Hard thing about being a Christian is that Christians are judged by the standard that the Christians speak to or speak about, while at the same time the world lives in whatever way it wishes. And we are to hold to that higher standard. Many people don't want to, but Paul, the Apostle Paul, formerly the Jewish Pharisee of Pharisees, is now going to speak to his own people and to us as those in Corinth. I'm Pastor John from Living Stones and Sunland, Tujunga Seventh-day Adventist Churches, and it is definitely time for the call to prayer. Yes, I'm so glad you're back here, and we've got another bit of scripture. Man, we've been hauling through it this time. We're moving a lot faster than we did even in past weeks, even faster than Romans. This is cool stuff. It's deep stuff. I hope you're enjoying, and I hope that you like and subscribe and become a part. I want you to be a part of learning from the Word of God how to live a better life and have a happier life. So let's continue on. So we started last week with chapter 5, verses 1 through 5, dealing with yeast, and how yeast oftentimes is yeast is what makes all bread expand. But sometimes we Christians get bloated just like the world. We want to expand ourselves all the time. We want to be the center of attention. We want everyone to see us. We become arrogant, and we're filled with hubris for who we are, and we Seventh-day Adventists are not immune to this. Even in our conference, in our churches, in our unions, we get arrogance all the time, as many people. Remember, we are in the world, but we're not supposed to be of the world, and that is the concept today of responsibility. What we have to the world versus what we are responsible to the world for, even though the world is irresponsible toward us. So we continue reading in verse 6 of Corinthians, 1 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 6. Your boasting is not good. Don't you know that a little yeast leavens the whole batch of dough? Just a little bit of yeast can make it expand huge. Isn't that true? Get rid of the old yeast then, so that you may be a new unleavened batch, as you really are. For Christ, our Passover lamb, has been crucified. Or sacrificed. Sorry, the text says sacrificed. My brain threw in crucified. And you know, this goes back to the language of Moses and the children of Israel leaving Egypt. For they did not have time to leaven the bread and make it rise. They made it, and it was thin bread. Just like Jesus is not filled with hot air. He is humble. There's nothing in this world sees in him that would attract us to him. And yet, he's deep. He brings nutrition to the body. Even though sometimes eating it at first is dry, the taste becomes sweet. Leavening makes the bread easy, soft. And we Christians, when we become leavened, we become full of hot air and we become soft. We get easily triggered when we are filled with hot air. If we think we're better than everybody else, of course we're going to get triggered because we think everybody should make us happy. The whole world is out there to make me happy. And that is social media culture. That is our problem. We have these devices on us and we get to order. We order it from McDonald's. Boom, there it comes. Oh, Uber Eats. Woo, there it comes. Oh yeah, I can do anything I want. So somebody says one thing I don't like. Oh, get them out of our face. It triggers. I get angry. Why? Because I'm so used to getting my own way, because I am so arrogant. Are you arrogant like that? Maybe we should teach our younger generations to not be arrogant. Maybe we should teach our older generations to not be arrogant. For this is a reality of our lives. When we are yeasted, we can become full of hot air, and then we're easily hurt by others. Just like bread that's soft. You push on it and it breaks easily. Why? Yeast has made it filled with air. It's not strength, it's weakness. God is not created to be weak. For Christ is our Passover lamb who is sacrificed for us. And therefore we have strength because we know he is going to be or was raised again. Therefore, let us keep the festival not with the old yeast of leavening, not with bread that is filled with hot air, but instead leavening and malice and wickedness, but with the unleavened bread of sincerity and truth. Sincerity. You know, when you meet someone that's sincere, they don't think themselves better than others. There are good people that God will save. They never knew the Sabbath, but because of their sincerity, he brings them right on in, because it is not the Sabbath that saves. It's not all of the fluff that saves us. It's Jesus. And that sincerity in him is what gives us the strength to be strong like Jesus. Verse 9, I wrote to you, my letter, not to associate with sexually immoral people. Did you hear that? Don't associate with sexually immoral people. But there's a caveat. Responsibility. Read with me. Verse 10. Not at all meaning the people of this world who are immoral, or the greedy, or the swindlers, or idolaters. In that case, you would have to leave this world. But I'm writing you right now that you must not associate with anyone who claims to be a believer, or a sister, or a brother, but is sexually immoral, greedy, idolater, slanderer, drunkard, swindler. Do not even eat with such people. Do you get what he's saying? Sometimes we Seventh-day Adventists say, oh, you shouldn't associate with anyone that does anything bad. You can't associate with them out there in the world. Oh, Paul is not saying that. Paul is saying, stop the association with people in the church who are doing those things. Why? Because when we are called to be for Jesus, we are called to a higher life. How is it that the world sees a good church to go to, a good belief system, if those who supposedly believe are doing everything that they are in the world? We're no different. We're no different. This is the thing about this world. We love our little entitlements. I'm entitled as a pastor. Entitled. I have a title on my name. But if I don't do the pastor duties, then what's the point of having a title? Generally, in my churches, I really have a lot of respect for those who work hard without a name behind their name, without a title behind their name. Our church has not had a head deaconess, literally since the time I came here. And I don't know what it is about this church, this building and everything. We have, the ladies are a little different than the guys. And the ladies work. They do a lot of work, but nobody really wants to have necessarily that title. And, but I've been opposite at other churches. Oftentimes I have a head deaconess, but not a head deacon. And because the deacons didn't really want, or wanted an entitled person, but didn't really want to have the work that it takes. You know, it's titling is one thing, and doing the work is another thing, if you know what I'm saying. It's interesting how I can get people to do great work and they say, oh, I don't need a title. Well, as Christians, we want to have a title sometimes, but we don't want to live by the code of which that title stands for. That's a reality. Our culture today doesn't like living by any codes. Live and let live. Do what you want to do, sexually and otherwise. But in our church, if we are going to have a better people in this world, if we're going to change this world, we've got to start with our home base first. And then others can begin to learn what kind of joy that brings to their lives. Because living by a code is a powerful thing. Not just powerful, it is a joy. Especially when you get to older life and you see that good things have come from doing what is right and having people around you you can trust. We must be responsible with the belief system we have and act to live within that responsibility. Does that make sense? Verse 11. But now I am writing you that you must not associate with anyone who claims to be a brother or sister and is sexually immoral, greedy, idolater, meaning worshiping things other than God, a slanderer, somebody that puts other people down all the time, and slandering is a big deal, in Christianity. A drunkard, someone that's always inebriated, somebody that enjoys getting drunk, whether with alcohol or any kind of a drug. Or a swindler, someone who steals, swindles. Do not even eat with such people. Verse 12. What business is it of mine to judge those outside the church? Yeah, I know. We love to judge people outside the church. But God didn't ask us to judge the world. Jesus is going to judge the world. But those inside. Our job is to judge those on the inside. God will judge the outside, but expel the wicked person from among you. Did you hear that? Well, let me just let you know, we're dealing with somebody in the Corinthian church that's literally sleeping with his father's wife and yet expects to be in charge of the church. I know I have experienced that in my own churches. Not sleeping with my father's wife, I promise you. No, I have experienced people doing immoral activities and yet leading the church, and I know where it leads to. It leads to nowhere good. My friends, our job is to worry about our backyard. I want you to be a part of my church and to make the changes you need. We together will work. And you know what? He's going to the extent of saying, don't even eat with someone like that. Well, I know why, because that person was trying to control the church. So he was trying to find a way to get that person out of the power structure. Well, here's my answer. If you see someone that may be doing something wrong, just keep loving them in, bringing them in, but make sure that we don't have the leaders of our churches doing the things that even the world condemns. Okay? Does that make sense? I know this one's a tough one, but it's a good one. May God bless you all. And we're going to it's about 7:15 right now, so it's almost time for intercession. I'll pray for each and every one of you, as well as those things that aren't mentioned. May God bless you, and I will see you in a few moments.